to nil. Life is no thrill. It's worse than nil. So draw the right conclusion. Let them be still.
Welcome to episode number 96 of the Exploring Antinatalism Podcast, a podcast showcasing the wide range of perspectives and ideas throughout antinatalism as it exists today, through interviews with antinatalist and non-antinatalist thinkers and creators of all kinds, now running 5 years strong. I'm your host, Amanda Sukenick, and today I'm speaking with Assistant Professor of Bioethics at the University of Turin, translator of the Italian edition of the Human Predicament, and author of the essay Anti-natalist, Procreationism, and Humanity's Cosmic Significance, Luca Lo Sapio. Luca, welcome to the Exploring Antinatalism Podcast. It's an honor to have you on the show today.
It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you so much, Luca. Yes, so I'm not entirely sure actually now how we first became acquainted with each other. I think you had first contacted Matti after our book came out. We had some lovely conversations and
yes, exactly.
Interactions around that time. I really do find your work fascinating. So really excited to talk to you more about what you've been up to today. Let's start with the most basic of questions, though. Who is Luca Lo Sapio? And I so hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Yes. You have correctly pronounced my name. I am an assistant professor of bioethics at the University of Turin. I am also an adjunct professor of bioethics at the University of Naples and at the University Louis in Rome. My main focus is on applied ethics, in particular environmental ethics, bioethics, end-of-life decisions. Yes. It's a broad range of topics. We can say something more.
And we no doubt will. Yeah, you're a busy man. I didn't realize that you also were at those other universities as well and in those other capacities. That's great. And I also didn't realize that the right to die, I'm assuming, is also a big piece of your work. I definitely would love to hear more about that later. Before we get to that, though, Luca, why are you or are you not an antinatalist?
Yes, I can tell you that I define myself a mild antinatalist. So I don't embrace a radical form of antinatalism, whose main consequence is the advocacy of human extinction. But I am not a pro-natalist as well. In fact, I think that in most of the cases, bringing somebody into existence is a bad thing. This is the reason why I'm defining myself a mild antinatalist. So the mildness consists of my position, in which I think that in most of the cases, bringing somebody into existence is morally wrong, but not necessarily in all cases.
Luca, how do you feel that antinatalism should be defined? As you know, this is a big topic of conversation.
Yes, I think that antinatalism is the view that existence offers no advantage over non-existence. So it would be better never to come into existence. I agree with Benatar in considering anti-procreation in some sense distinct from anti-natalism. In other words, being anti-procreationist presupposes being anti-natalist, but being anti-natalist does not necessarily imply being anti-procreationist. So just to sum up, I think anti-natalist is an axiological view about existence, according to which existence is not something valuable. Is an axiological view. Instead, anti-procreationism is a normative view, according to which we should refrain from bringing somebody into existence. I think it's important to make this distinction in order to consider the whole spectrum of antinatalist positions.
Okay, and so can you talk to a little bit more about that, to the way that those two things would be divided?
Yes, they are strictly linked together. Of course, they are strictly linked, but there are some authors who think they should be distincted. So there are some authors who think that they are different things. For example, the Japanese philosopher Morioka, he thinks that, for example, ancient antinatalism in ancient Greece, for example, is antinatalism without being necessarily anti-procreationism. Instead, modern and contemporary antinatalism is also anti-procreationism. So, for example, David Benatar is anti-natalist as well as anti-procreationist. So this is the reason why I think they should be distinct. We cannot overlap the two notions, the two concepts.
I absolutely understand what you're saying now, and I agree with you. And
I think it's useful to make a distinction between the concept of antinatalism and the concept of anti-procreationism. I know, of course, there are some overlappings. But we cannot completely, entirely overlap the two concepts.
Well, especially in regards to what Morioka and others would refer to as proto-antinatalism, which I think is what you're referring to,
yes.
Then I would absolutely agree. I mean, it's all too easy. And I've done it myself in my formative years as an antinatalist, where you see something from the past and you kind of label all of it as one sort of antinatalism, where it may very well not have been where that particular thinker was coming from. The limits of how one can separate anti-procreationism from antinatalism in the contemporary sense, I have more questions about. I'm a little undecided about, and I'm a little stubborn about it in some respects.
The main reason I think it is useful to distinguish the two concepts is that the first one is an axiological concept, is a concept about the values we attach to life. And the other one is a normative concept. So it's something about what we should do or what we should refrain from doing.
Luca, how did you originally become interested in antinatalism, and what are the main points of focus within your research on the subject?
Yes, my original interest in antinatalism comes from a previous interest in some issues concerning the ethics of extinction and the ethics of existential risks. More broadly, I can say that my interest stands within the realm of environmental ethics. In particular, my point is whether human extinction is a good thing or a bad thing, and from what perspective it may be a good or a bad thing. So this is my starting point. In fact, I don't think it is a trivial question, the one regarding the goodness of our survival as a species. I think that a good investigation in ethics should start from this question. Instead, I think that in general, ethics starts a step forwards with regard to the existential question. Because in general, we think that life is something valuable. No? This is the general view. But this is not something that we should take for granted. We should argue about this view. We should give reasons supporting this view or contrasting this view. I am totally in opposition with this view, but I think that this is a starting point for an ethical reflection. It should be the starting point for an ethical reflection.
Right, and you do that to to a great degree in your paper. And I mean, you go through these different arguments. We'll go through it in detail, but you go through these different arguments and sort of see the value, and then you make this conclusion about how there is this possible significance to human life that probably should be.
Yes.
Do you now, as far as like what gives you pause about creating new lives, would it be sort of an axiological value of suffering? Or like, what is the thing that you would say is like the cost of procreation? Like, what gives you pause about the creation of new life?
I think that's the suffering which is widespread in existence, the hardships of life, the badness, the general badness of our world is a good reason not to bring in somebody into existence. Also, for example, if we decide to have children for selfish reasons, this is not a good reason to bring somebody into existence. If we are deciding to bring somebody into existence because we want to fix our relationship with our partner, or if we want to give pleasure to our parents, these are all reasons not to bring somebody into existence. This is the reason why I think that in most of the cases we have bad reasons for bringing somebody into existence, and so this is the reason why we should abstain from bringing somebody into existence.
Yeah, beautifully said. Beautifully said. In addition to antinatalism, Luca, what you spoke a little bit about it already. What are your other topics of philosophical inquiry and interest?
Yes,
and if you could, like, do you see any sort of corollaries between subjects like antinatalism and the right to die? Is that one? Do those conversations feed into one another in your mind?
Yes, my other philosophical interests are, for example, in human enhancement studies, food ethics, the ethics of astrobiology, and this is the reason why I ask myself whether or not we have cosmic significance. This is one of the main topics in the ethics of astrobiology. With regard to your second question, if there is a linkage between antinatalism and the right to die, yes, I think so, because the right to die also lies on the idea that in some circumstances our existence is full of hardships, sorrow, pain, and so we have the right to decide when to stop our existence. There is a sort of threshold, and if we consider our existence not worth living, if we consider our life not worth living, we should have the right to exit our existence.
I agree 100%. Have you written on the subject of the right to die? Perhaps I haven't seen those particular papers.
Yes, I have published a book in 2021 about advanced directives. Yes, it's written in Italian. So,
could you tell me the name of the book?
Yes, the Italian name is Pazienti Incapaci. Incompetent patients in English.
Fascinating. Well, we'll have to find a. Please send me a link to that. We'll put it below. I didn't know that you had written a book on this subject. Amazing. Luca, thank you for your thoughts on all of that. Luca, as you know, there are many kinds of antinatalism. Some focusing only on humans, others more broadly to all sentient creatures. Some extending through the possibility of sentient machines and beyond. What for you is the appropriate scope of antinatalism, and what is the extent of your anti-procreative compass?
I think the scope of antinatalism shouldn't be restricted to human beings, because we are not the sole entities capable of suffering. So it should include non-human animals and also sentient machines. This means, for example, that we should stop creating non-human animals for human purposes, for industrial animal agriculture, and that we should abstain from creating sentient machines. unless there are very special reasons for doing that. In general, my aim is to minimize suffering. So I think that we should abstain from all the practices that are linked to the widespread of suffering. And yes.
Beautiful answer. Exactly my thoughts. Now, if we were to go extinct, does that have, in your opinion, does that have normative implications into the lives of wild animals? Is that something that we should if we were on our way out, would, even though we don't create the suffering in nature, do human beings, as the only creatures capable of such a thing, have a moral responsibility to then make sure that they are not left alone, essentially, to perpetuate ad infinitum?
This is a very difficult question. I think that we should abstain from intervening, for example, to prevent of wild animals. So, for example, if there is a prey and a predator, we should abstain from saving the life of that animal who is going to be eaten by a lion, for example. I don't think that we have a moral obligation to intervene in order to save that animal's life. Pardon.
You mentioned earlier that your antinatalism kind of came from a place of environmentalism, or originally that kind of place.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts on sort of anthropocentric environmentalist interpretations of antinatalism, like vehement, or are you perhaps familiar at all with the work of Patricia McCormack, who would kind of
Yes, I know the work of
conclusions? Yeah.
Patricia McCormack, but in general, I define myself a non-anthropocentric ethicist. So I don't think that the human being is at the center of the universe, or that he is at the center of our reality. I think that we are just part of a network within which we have non-human animals and also some other entities such as rivers, mountains, and we should respect all this kind of stuff if we want to survive and if we want to enhance our very condition.
Now we'll get properly into the subject of extinction and your thoughts on it when we talk about your paper, but I'm interested to know, like, what you see as the place of extinction within antinatalism, because there's all different kinds of disagreements among antinatalists about this. Some really want to decouple the subject of antinatalism and extinction. So do you feel like it can or should be, or is it intrinsic to the subject?
No, I don't think it is intrinsic to the subject. Indeed, there are some authors who decouple the topic of extinction from the topic of antinatalism. And I think that they can be decoupled. They can be decoupled. For example, I am more familiar with the views in which they are decoupled. I don't think that we should go extinct as a species, even if I consider myself a mild antinatalist. If I want to summarize my position with regard to this topic, I can say that I'm not sure that extinction of our species is a good thing. I'm not sure. So the epistemic ignorance, in some sense, forces me to consider the possibility that it is not a good thing.
We'll return to that in just a moment, I think. Now, this is a bit of a long question, and I apologize, but up until recently, I really had heard very little antinatalism emerging from Italy, and I'm always fascinated to hear, like, how it's emerging in different countries, different cultures. A few years back, there was an Italian black metal band by the name of Pathogenesis, I believe, who released a song called it's like proselytize antinatalism or something like that. That's a translation. I'll put it all below. And more recently, I become acquainted with the wonderful Sarah Dierna, who is a PhD student at the Department of Humanities at the University of Catania, and she's done quite a bit of work to feature the work of an antinatalist philosopher there named Alberto G. Busso, who's I don't know if Busso.
Alberto Biuso.
Alberto Busso. I apologize for mispronouncing his name. I don't know his work in very much detail, I have to say. So I was wondering if you're familiar with any of these people, their work, any of these developments, what you think of their contribution, and anything else you might be able to enlighten me about regarding like anything bubbling, under the surface of Italian antinatalism.
Yes, I think they published some works about antinatalism. I know they work, and I think it's very valuable, given the fact that antinatalism is not so common in Italian debates. There are just a few scholars engaged in reflecting about antinatalism. So I think that's all the efforts for supporting the cause of antinatalism and the dissemination of this philosophical view is welcomed in general. Sarah Dearn, I know Sarah Dearn's work, for example, she made a good reconstruction of the history of antinatalism, also reflecting on the differences between the contemporary antinatalism, for example, the one of David Benatar, and the ancient one. So I think, for example, Sarah Dearn's work is a very valuable work about this topic. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. No, thank you for your details. Sarah will be my guest on the Exploring Antinatalism podcast next year. Really great contributions. So thank you for your window into that. Can you think of anybody else working in Italy on antinatalism that perhaps I haven't heard of yet? No?
I don't think there are other authors who are working on antinatalism in Italy. I don't know them. At least I don't know. I'm not sure there aren't, but
yeah. Well, there's some excellent work being done between you and them, so very, very exciting times we live in. I was very happy to learn that you were, in fact, the Italian translator of Benatar's 1997 paper, Why It Is Better Never to Come Into Existence. Excellent. So can you tell me a little bit about how that opportunity emerged?
Yes, I thought it was important to have an Italian translation of this article, as well as the other Benatar's work, The Human Predicament, because I'm the translator of the Human Predicament as well.
I hadn't realized that. My bad.
Yes. I think it's very important in order to make a broader public be aware of antinatalist debates, and also the speculative work, the philosophical work of David Benatar, because I consider David Benatar's work a milestone in philosophical and ethical debate. So I think it is a starting point for many discussions about extinction, the value of human existence, the comparison between existence and non-existence. So I think that if we want to analyze some topics, we should start from David Benatar's work. And this is one of the reasons I decided to engage myself with these works.
Beautiful. Well, again, I apologize that I didn't realize you were the translator of the Human Predicament as well.
Yes.
But yes, I agree 100% with everything you said. Do you have any plans, if I may ask, to translate other Benatarian works, particularly Better Never to Have Been? There is, as far as I know,
I don't know.
there is no Italian translation of Better Never to Have Been.
I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. That would be an amazing project. Speaking a little bit more towards Benatar, so I do not know how to pronounce this, but there was some sort of conference online, I think through Zoom, about 3 years ago, called Consulta di Bioetica. Okay, and it was a lovely conversation between you and David Benatar and quite a number of other people. Can you tell us a little bit about that event?
Yes. We decided to invite Benatar to start a discussion on the main aspects of his philosophy. I am a member of Consulta di Bioetica since 2009, and We discuss about a lot of bioethical topics, end-of-life decisions, the ethics of the beginning of life, and we decided to introduce also antinatalism as a topic of discussion. So I had this connection with David, and we decided to invite him for a webinar. I also invited David in one of my university courses last year. So, and I think that I will invite him also for my next year course about antinatalism in Turin. Yes.
The link to that conference will be below, but yes, I'd love to hear all about you putting antinatalism into the classroom. As you know, that's like it's happening more, it's happening increasingly in the world, but it's still kind of a rarity, you know, people teaching about antinatalism. Yes. So I'd love to hear about your plans. Yeah.
Yeah, yes. My plans are, as I was saying you, for an invitation to David Benatar's for next year course, because I have organized the course about antinatalism for next year in Turin. And there is an international curriculum, there is an international course in Turin, and I teach there bioethics, so I decided to introduce antinatalism in my courses. I think this is a very interesting argument of discussion, and it is interesting also because it gives me the opportunity to analyze other bioethical topics, such as extinction, end-of-life decision, the right to die, and so on and so forth. So
amazing. So it's an entire course on antinatalism.
Yes, an entire course on antinatalism. Yes.
You know, I don't know for sure. I mean, I don't want to be remiss in saying one way or the other, but it could be the first in the world to do that. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm a pioneer, so I don't know.
You are. I think you just very well might be. So that's extremely exciting. Yeah, is there anything else you could tell me about the course, things that you plan on covering, what you hope, you know, how do you and I'm wondering too, like how you do you anticipate that it might be a difficult subject for students to kind of navigate? Because obviously, like antinatalism, you know, students at a higher level obviously will be coming to this with more of a steely constitution, you know. They but antinatalism does elicit emotions in people. And
yes, because it is a very
a
very controversial topic. So students, maybe students in some circumstances should be prepared a little bit about the nature of the philosophical of this philosophical view, because it is very controversial, and it is very problematic with regard to emotions and the yes.
Well, that should be interesting. I hope that you'll keep us abreast in some way of how it goes. I'd certainly love to hear about it as it develops. So congratulations to you on this course and everything. It sounds absolutely fascinating. It's just very exciting. So let's move on to a proper discussion now of your paper, Anti-natalist Procreationism and Humanity's Cosmic Significance. This came out just this year, and it was just this summer, I think in June. And it was featured in the Journal of Ethics and Emerging Technologies, if I'm not mistaken. Would you like to read the abstract, Luca, or would you like me to?
Yes, you can read the abstract.
Okay.
Yes.
In this article, I explore several prominent arguments forwarded by advocates of the antinatalist philosophy. Mainly, I assess the asymmetry argument, the argument concerning the lack of consent by future individuals, the argument about the quality and meaning of life, and the imposition argument. After identifying some issues with the asymmetry argument and underscoring the strengths of the other arguments, I propose a form of antinatalism that accepts procreation under narrowly defined circumstances to avert species extinction and its potentially catastrophic consequences from a cosmic perspective. So, absolutely fascinating paper. Before we jump into it, I mean, what built up towards the writing of this? This, as far as I know, was the first time you were writing about antinatalism, a piece of your own.
Yes, I have written the Italian introduction of the Human Predicament. So this is my second work on antinatalism. Yes, my second work, but this is a more I can say that this is a more systematic work. I try to put all the things together, and I try to give a definition of what is anti-procreational, anti-natalism. What is the linkage between anti-natalism and procreationism? So we are used to distinguish in a very strong way these two concepts. I think they are different concepts, but I also think that in some circumstances we can link them together in some way, and I try to argue in which ways we can put these concepts together.
I think it's an excellent introductory overview to a lot of the main arguments. You do a great job of going through the Benatarian axiological asymmetry, Schifrin's consent, the quality of life arguments, and of course the imposition argument posited by Matti Haire and Samantha Sukenick. And yeah, it's really, it's a great sort of overview. I think it's an excellent sort of at the very least a very great introductory piece to those arguments. What do you see? You begin obviously with the asymmetry. What do you see as the strengths of the asymmetry? What do you see as its major stumbling blocks and problems?
I think this is a very interesting argument because it tries to give a position for antinatalism without referring to the external worlds, without referring to the hardships and the pains of life and so on and so forth. So maybe this is the very interesting part of these arguments. The very fact that David Benatar tries to formulate an argument without referring to the external world, an a priori arguments. This is the reason why this is interesting from a philosophical perspective. I think that the main problem with the argument is that we cannot properly understand the third sentence of the matrix, in particular if we compare it with the fourth sentence. Indeed, the third sentence can easily be interpreted impersonally. The absence of pain is good. We can give an interpretation of this sentence in an impersonal way. While the fourth sentence can be interpreted as a person affecting sentence. The absence of pleasure is not good unless there is somebody who is deprived of that pleasure. As you know, David Benatar says that we have to interpret both sentences as person affecting sentences. So the right interpretation to give to the third and fourth sentences of the matrix Benatar formulate is a person affecting interpretation. But I think that this is the very problem of Benatar's position, because if we use the counterfactual to interpret the third sentence, we must use a very bizarre standpoint according to which an entity who will never come into existence has no interest in coming into existence. But if that entity will never come into existence, she will never have interests of any sorts. This is the very problem. This is a metaphysical problem, in my view.
To what extent do you feel all or most of the other arguments for antinatalism fall sort of into that issue? And do you think, I mean, I think you do, I mean, based on what you say in the paper, but, there are those that sort of feel like antinatalism is not survivable past whatever, disagreements about the asymmetry that might sort of come up. But, in my mind, it's not contingent on what issues the asymmetry may or may not have. I don't know. I'm just curious to know your thoughts on that.
But I think that there are some other arguments supporting anti-natalists that, in my opinion, work in a better way to support anti-natalism. For example, the quality of life argument is a better argument, or the argument from imposition. I think that these are better arguments to support antinatalism. And for example, there are some authors who criticize Benatar's argument by saying that without the quality of life argument, the asymmetry argument in itself is not capable of justifying antinatalism. And I think this is true. I think that if we consider the asymmetry argument in itself without referring, for example, to the quality of life argument, it is a little bit difficult to support antinatalism. So this is the reason why I think quality of life argument, the meaning of life arguments, or the argument from imposition are better arguments to support antinatalism, because they consider the existent person. They are not arguments about non-existing persons, because a non-existent person is a bizarre entity from a metaphysical point of view.
As you're speaking about the imposition argument, and if you don't mind, I'll read a passage from the paper. You start to sort of go into your own, thesis and ideas about sort of why maybe all of this should be rejected, particularly if it leads to extinction. Is contrarily, this is my specific view, being born is a burden we inherit to perpetuate the cosmic journey of our species, a journey whose significance at a cosmic level might be monumental or entirely negligible. Therefore, justifiable reasons for procreation only arise if we commit to altering our lifestyles to potentially ensure the long-term survival of our species on the planet. Additionally, procreation becomes defensible if parenting efforts are directed towards raising children in a manner that actively contributes to their preservation of the planet from further destruction. So I guess where I would start is, what is this cosmic significance that you're pointing to? Like, what, even if we had it, even if we could identify it, what about it is worth the infliction of all of this suffering? Like, future people won't be able to eat it. They won't be able to smell it. It won't comfort them. It will come at this gigantic cost. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I understand your point, and this is the reason why I'm not saying that this is necessarily a good argument. But I think that the very possibility that we have a cosmic significance should have an impact on how we reason about antinatalism or bringing somebody into existence, and so on and so forth. I think that our epistemic ignorance about the existence or non-existence of a cosmic significance of our existence is something that should have a moral consequence. So our ignorance should have a moral consequence. We don't know whether or not a cosmic meaning exists, but the very fact that we don't know has a moral significance. So we should consider the fact that we don't know. If we don't know whether or not there is a baby behind the brush, we should abstain from shooting, for example. I know that this is an argument often used from the authors who oppose abortion. I am a supporter of abortion. But I think that in some other circumstances, you can use this argument for supporting other kind of questions. In this case, I think that this is a good argument. The argument from ignorance. We can also define this argument, the argument from ignorance. So the ignorance, our ignorance about the existence of a cosmic significance has a moral profile, has a moral as a moral significance. So we should consider, we should take under consideration the very fact that we don't know. We are not sure that a cosmic significance exists. We don't know whether or not it exists. But the very fact that we don't know has a moral consequence.
Yeah, I think I understand where you're coming from. I mean,
if we have to reason starting from what we know about the universe, how the universe works, if we have to start with our deterministic and mechanicistic view about the universe and so on and so forth, we maybe we are forced, in some sense, we are forced to say that a cosmic meaning doesn't exist. But even if we start from a mechanicistic and deterministic view about the universe, the origin of the universe, and so on and so forth, we cannot be sure that we don't have a cosmic meaning. This is a first argument. Another one is about the contents of this meaning, because you before you asked me something about the contents of this meaning. I don't know what is the content of humanity's cosmic meaning. So maybe you can also consider this as a formal argument, because this is lack of content in some sense. I am an atheist. I don't believe that God exists. So I don't think that cosmic significance is linked with the existence of God, for example. But I think that we can, even if we don't start from a theistic perspective, we can formulate a non-theistic perspective about cosmic significance. But this is another question. This is a question about the content of cosmic significance. But you can also consider this argument only from a formal perspective.
I appreciate that. No, thank you for all of that. I mean, the existence of a God was. I mean, I had every inclination to believe that you are an atheist, so I didn't really think that's where you were coming from that. But I was curious. I mean, I guess and as a formal argument, yes, I think that it's completely valid to question that or go in that direction. I mean, in terms of its implications, there's a certain amount of mirage to this question, like some sort of cosmic significance could be out there. It could always be out there. And so that's a reason to keep perpetuating us. But even aside from the cost of suffering, from the perpetuation of sentience that it would take to perpetuate humankind, or all of sentience as the case may be, to trying to find this cosmic significance, I wonder how the knowledge of this cosmic significance would be of value to living things. Whether we could, if we knew it, would it be worth it? And I that is sort of where I fail to see, like, you know, there's always going to be questions. There's always going to be things about the universe that we don't know, but we know some pretty hard, brutal facts about reality right now. Or, I mean, we know what a life looks like. We know how badly it can go. And so in the pursuit of what, to me, and I don't mean to be unfair to it by calling it a mirage, it's just sort of what the word that sort of comes to mind first. How many people would we perpetuate? What does perpetuating humanity look like from an antinatalist perspective in the pursuit of this this question or finding the significance?
I know that life is full of hardships, pain, and sorrow, and so on and so forth. And this is the reason why I think that we should abstain from procreating in many more circumstances than we usually think. I think that we are morally. I think that it is not morally wrong to procreate only in some very specific circumstances. And I think that we should consider this possibility, even if we recognize, even if we know that life is full of suffering, hardships, and sorrow. Because the answer to your question might be that we are the only part of the universe who is self-aware and who is aware about reality itself. And this is a valuable thing. And maybe it is valuable to perpetuate this very possibility of continuing to have moral stuff in the world, and I don't know, to have a species who is self-aware and who is aware of the universe. So we are, in some sense, as Toby Ord says, we are the intelligent part of the universe, the part of the universe who is self-aware and who is capable of understanding the very fabric of the world. And I think that's losing this very part of the universe may be a bad thing. And I insist on using this kind of verbs. Maybe I'm not saying that it is a bad thing. I'm not sure. Maybe it is a good thing, but we don't know. And the very fact that we don't know, that we ignore whether or not it is a good or a bad thing, has a moral consequence. And the moral consequence is at least that we should hesitate in front of the possibility of accelerating extinction of humanity. For example, by facing extinction. This is the David Benatar's proposal.
Let me ask you this, like, if we were to go extinct, does this cosmic significance still remain in the universe in some sort of way? And like, if sentience is gone, there's nothing left to mourn it, our loss, then what does it really matter? Like, maybe the only, I mean, if we have cosmic significance, then it can only be mourned. The lack of its knowledge can only be mourned for while we're here. And I agree with you in the sense of, like, look, I as an extinctionist, there is a lot to, you do spend part of your life in mourning. You spend life in, and part of that mourning is the things in life that are good and the questions that will go unanswered, you know, if we go extinct. I mean, humanity is a mess of positives and negatives, and there are some things to be lamented about, but it can only really be sad, and it can only really be a mournful thing while we're still here. If we're gone, when we're gone, this whole question of cosmic significance, I just don't know if it lingers somewhere out there in the universe with nothing that has the instruments to continue that mourning. So does it still matter? Does it still, yeah.
Yes, I understand. I understand your point, but I think we have to make a distinction between subjective view and objective view. So from a subjective view, or we can also say from a subjectivist view, if we go extinct, there is no species in the universe who is able to appreciate our existence or non-existence and the values we can bring about, and so on and so forth. So from a subjectivist perspective, it is true that in some sense, our disappearance from the fabric of the universe is it doesn't matter that we vanish If there is no other species in the universe who is able to appreciate moral values and the very possibility of being self-aware about ourselves and the universe itself, and so on and so forth. But from an objectivist perspective, so there is another side of the question. From an objectivist perspective, the very loss of our existence and the very loss of moral values and so on and so forth may be of cosmic significance without considering the subjectivist view. So it is possible that even if there are no sentient beings still existent in the universe, it is a bad thing that people are no more part of the fabric of the universe. I think that this is also an argument formulated by Peter Singer with regard to moral values. He says that one of the reasons we should abstain from accelerating extinction, or we should do anything we can for preventing human extinction, is that moral values in some sense are valuable in themselves, and so the extinction of human beings entails the disappearance from the fabric of the universe of those values. So I think this is a possible answer. I understand that this is not a ultimate answer, and it can also be objected from different perspectives. I know I'm aware of the possible criticisms you can.
I wonder, again, my inclination is always to go to sort of the practical side of these things, which I know is maybe perhaps a little bit inappropriate. But I mean, I do wonder to what extent you would be willing to for humanity to strive to find this cosmic meaning. So would it mean things like, I mean, would that maybe necessitate, creation of sentient machines? Like, would that, or leaving the planet, things like that would make sure that our existence is perpetuated as much as possible?
Earlier, I said that there are some circumstances in which you are morally justified to create sentient machines.
Yeah.
I think that one of the possible scenarios in which you are morally justified to create sentient machines is the scenario in which human beings are running the risk to go extinct. Yeah. So if the only way to preserve moral values and the very features that we associate with human beings is to create other entities who are able to fabric themselves moral values and things like that, maybe this is a possible circumstance in which you are morally justified to create sentient machines. But in all other circumstances, I don't think that this is a good thing at all, because you are creating some entity who is able also to suffer and to be exposed to the hardships of life. The question of escaping from our planet and, for example, going on other celestial bodies and so on and so forth, even in this case, I think that this is a very difficult enterprise. I don't think that this is very easy to realize, and I don't think that Elon Musk is right when he says that it is easy. Oh, tomorrow morning we will plan some journeys on Mars, or we can colonize Mars. This is not so easy. It's easy to say, but it's not easy to realize. But I think that in general, we have to make any efforts as possible to preserve our planets. So the first option is not to escape from our planet, but to preserve our planet and all the living creatures within it. I think, however, I think that's if our only chance of perpetuating moral values and the good things that we associate with human beings is to escape from our planets and colonizing some other celestial bodies, I think that we are morally justified to do this kind of stuff.
And you've created this term anti-natalist procreationism. I mean, it really is interesting to me because, the idea that anti-natalists would in any circumstance say yes to the creation of new lives is anathema to most anti-natalist sensibilities. At the same time, there is a Benatarian kind of corollary there, right? Because he does talk about phased extinction and dying extinction, which does not mean the creation of zero lives. It means the creation of some lives in the interest of this gradual extinction.
Yes.
And so I think what you've done is sort of take it in a slightly reversed fashion, right? Like he would say the only sort of real permissible procreation would be in the interest of extinction, and you're saying the only permissible procreation would be in the interest of trying to find this cosmic meaning. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes. It is a good reframing of yes. I think so. Yes.
It's too simplistic to say, well, I agree, I don't agree, but I like I think that you present a fascinating proposition, at least, of holding that view with anti-natalist arguments in mind. So it's sort of procreationism, a form of long-termism, but
yes,
but
exactly.
informed
Yes.
by anti-natalism. And I, with all due respect to you, I don't know if those two things or those conglomerate of things can be, what's the word I'm looking for?
I think that you want to say that you are not sure that they can be coherently linked together. Yes,
exactly.
I understand.
Very good. And but yeah, please, if you have any thoughts on that, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I understand that this is a little bizarre to associate the word antinatalism and the word procreationism. So it is a little bizarre to talk about antinatalist procreationism. I understand.
Yeah.
But what I mean is, with this expression in mind, antinatalist procreationism is an antinatalism which is still open to the possibility of procreation in some specific and limited circumstances. And the procreationist stance that is inclined to think that in most of the cases, we should refrain from procreation. So this is maybe this is the definition of antinatalist procreationism. Yes.
So, Luca, absolutely fascinating. There's so much to think about. We could go on talking about this for many, many hours. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind whatsoever. I'm undecided about antinatalist procreationism. I would vote for, if we lived in an antinatalist world, I would vote for it in terms of phased extinction and dying extinction, because I think that is the most ethical way of winding down a population, even though it comes to great cost of lives, of the lives that we create. We would be creating those lives for a set purpose, of going through with extinction. And I have a lot of feelings about that, a lot of questions about that. So I, but for any other reason, to say yes to it for any other reason, particularly something like cosmic significance, which I just don't, I have some remaining questions as to if it is of significant enough value to perpetuate life, whether it could actually help or, make life better for sentient creatures to attain that knowledge. That's something I have a lot of questions about. But I think that you bring up a fascinating thesis, and I really do love this paper, and I'm just really excited to see what you do in the future. So what does obviously you have teaching antinatalism coming up, but what can we expect from you in the future? Is antinatalism something that you want to continue writing about and investigating?
Yes, I'm planning some translations. Yes, this is the first thing. And the second one may be a work about antinatalism, a more systematic work about antinatalism, a book about antinatalism of my own. Maybe this is my
That would be wonderful.
yes, maybe in the coming years. I don't know when, but maybe in the coming year this is a possibility.
All right, well, I will look forward to that. I hope that that comes to fruition. That's very exciting. Where can people get in touch with you? Luca, where can people find you on the internet, and how can our audience best support the work that you do?
I have a personal website. If you are interested in my works or in what I do, conferences, seminars, and so on and so forth, you can take a look at my personal website, www.lucalosapio.it.
All right, fantastic. All links will be below. Luca, I'm just so happy to finally get an opportunity to speak with you and to meet you. We've been, communicating back and forth for a while now. Yeah, this was a great look into your inquiries and your works. And thank you so much, and thank you so much for being my guest on the Exploring Antinatalism podcast. It's been an honor.
Thank you. That's been an honor for me, Amanda.
Thank you so much, Luca. Hey everybody, it's Amanda. Are you looking for an excellent way of making academic antinatalist works more available across the globe? I know I am. And so I'm delighted to announce that the wonderful and award-winning Polish publishing house
Towarzystwo Naukowe imienia Stanisława Andreskiego,
which over the last 2 years has produced some exceptionally beautiful Polish editions of both original works like
Anti-natalism
by
Mikołaj Starzyński,
as well as classic academic antinatalist works like David Benatar's Better Never to Have Been, has now opened an online shop featuring the magnificent antinatalist Ouroboros designed by
Michał Dziadkowiec.
The logo is fully customizable and available on a wide variety of products. Proceeds from all sales at the shop go directly towards the translation, production, and publication of more Polish editions by
Towarzystwo Naukowe imienia Stanisława Andreskiego.
What a perfect way for the antinatalist community to help assist an amazing company doing such important work, making more antinatalist academic works more widely available. Link below.
Towarzystwo Naukowe imienia Stanisława Andreskiego.
The most dangerous idea in the world. That she will not have children. That he is not allowed to spread his sperm into outer space. Is not a bioethicist who questions the value of human life itself like a physicist who denies the existence of cause and effect, or a theologian who denies the existence of God? In his recent essay, Bioethics and the Value of Human Life, philosopher and bioethicist Matti Haira answers this question. Absolutely, definitely, maybe. He also distinguishes between bioethics with and without a hyphen, bio-utilitarian Thanatos ethics, and a newcomer among ethical theories of value, oib ethics. You heard that right. Bioethics spelled backwards. Bioethics and the Value of Human Life by Matti Haira on the Cambridge Quarterly of Healthcare Ethics. Out now, totally free, open access. Go check it out. Thank you for listening to the Exploring Antinatalism Podcast. Please follow the podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Exploring Antinatalism can also be heard on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Buzzsprout, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Amazon.com, and so many other platforms. You can email me at exploringantinatalism@gmail.com. Website designed by Visions Noirs. Please follow him at www.bionoir.com and follow him on Instagram. Logo art by Life Sucks. Please subscribe to him on YouTube and check out his shop on Etsy at www.etsy.com/shop/lifesuckspublishing. Music by Matti Haira. You can hear the whole song, Life is a Sexually Transmitted Disease with a Mortality Rate of 100%, by following the link in the description, and make sure to also read his academic paper which inspired the song. If you must give them a gift, then give them the gift of non-existence, in the Cambridge Quarterly of Healthcare Ethics on cambridge.org. Links below. All the best, and bye for now.
compared to nil. Life is no thrill, it's worse than nil. So draw the right conclusion, let them be still.